Well, let's cultivate a motivation for being together this morning. So we need to, like a good doctor to ourselves, make an accurate diagnosis of our situation and the situation of all beings that are around us. Part of that diagnosis is that the beings that seem to be, quote, around us, as though we are a center, they're infinite. They're numberless. They cannot be counted. So just take a moment and expand your view in that way. And all of us suffer, from the wealthiest, smartest, healthiest. They suffer too, usually from mental anguish.
to those who seem to have the worst conditions, but who can say the poorest, the sickest, the oldest, the most deprived, from top to bottom in samsara, every single being suffers. And we can look at the 3 types of suffering, just a glance review. So the first one is what might be called the ouch suffering, just pain. Even insects understand this. They'll move away from fire. Even a moth going at a light bulb will go toward the light, move away, go toward the light, move away. And that can be mental or physical, emotional. The ouch suffering, the gross suffering of body and mind. The second kind of suffering is a little bit difficult for us to get, because actually we are like that moth. We think there's something in that light that is going to relieve suffering. There's something there. If I can just get hold of it, my suffering will be over. So we grab over and over for small pleasures. Another lovely meal, another car, partner, apartment, job. And these things in themselves are just fine. They're just fine. They're impermanent, of course. And the problem is when we grab, we have some sense of, I want that to be a permanent happiness. So there's the suffering already. Even while we're enjoying it, we have that itchy suffering underneath. This isn't quite enough. This isn't quite it. Or if it is it, this has to continue. So we're already suffering from our pleasurable conditions, so-called pleasurable. And there's the third type of suffering, what's called the pervasive suffering of just plain stark conditions we're in. From the moment we're born, we begin aging. We have no control over that. We can't stop our aging. It just goes. And all the conditions with it. From the moment we're born, we're dying. Right at this moment, we're dying. Everyone in the room's dying right now. It's also true everyone in the room's living right now. It's important to notice both. And again, we can't stop that process. So that's the pervasive suffering. Then we look, where does this come from? It certainly doesn't come from the actual objects that we pursue. My new car doesn't make me suffer. My attitude towards my new car makes me suffer. I never want it to deteriorate. If someone scratches it, I get all upset. Maybe for you it's not a car, maybe it's a relationship. It's just never quite perfect. They never quite do what I want. Well, there's a kind of constant disappointment there, even in the best moments. So this is very important to look at these foundational teachings of the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the first 2 noble truths. And then it's equally important to look at the second 2 noble truths, the end of suffering. Wow, really, could it end? It's all I've known. could it end? How marvelous. Just for a moment, try on whether you believe your suffering and the suffering of all beings could actually end. It's hard to believe in, but it's a truth. And sometimes we get moments or glimpses of this outside of the craving, the aversion. Yes, it could. It could end. And the Buddha says so. The Buddha is the end of suffering, so the fully awakened mind can happen. It exists. And then we have the path. So these two noble truths, the end of suffering and the path, are the good news. We have everything we need to accomplish the path, practice the path, accomplish it, and end suffering. Now, how can we do this? And that's what we're here for today. To look at these attitudes and methods called the 6 paramitas. What an awakening being practices and how an awakened being thinks. So now, to do this, we need help. If we'd known how to do it, we would have done it. We want out of suffering. So we would have done this already for sure. And we've tried many, many things. Many things. Some worked a little bit, some didn't work at all. Some created a lot more suffering. So for help, we take a moment to think about true refuges. What's reliable? What's reliable? What can I rely on? In the Buddhist worldview, we think about our teachers, including the Buddha of this time, Buddha Shakyamuni. And we think of what they taught. And we try it out. And we see the results. We experience it. Does this work? Because without that experience, it's no better than any other book sitting on a shelf. So we need to try it out. And I know many of you work very hard at this. We do try it out. And we see, some relief, some insight, some way to be that seems to reduce the suffering. And then we try more. This is the path. And finally, in this motivation, we think, well, that diagnosis certainly applies to me. And I look around and I experience that it also applies to all beings. So take another couple silent moments to expand the motivation of being here today together in this incredibly fortunate circumstance. Leisure time, Dharma friends, good teacher. And I'm not talking about myself. Good teachers. This fantastic opportunity to bring peace to our own minds and hearts, and bring loving kindness to all the beings, as far as your imagination can stretch. So just set that in your heart, and then we'll begin with the review of the last couple times. Okay, it's working. Welcome people who are streaming. It seems to be happening this time. In session 2, we had to take a number of breaks to figure that out. So, yay, we're back. We all lived through the last 2 weeks because we never know. And it's good to keep in mind that we never know, because then we cherish every moment much more. Yeah. Okay. So that little motivation was kind of a quick review of some of the foundational paths, the first turning ideas. We have to get those very clear, because if we don't understand the situation we're in, no need to practice the 6 perfections. No need to do anything. Just go have a good party. So good to review those over and over as much as you can in moments of the day, on or off the cushion. So I wanted to start with, we've covered a lot of territory in the last 2 sessions, and we have some lovely things to do today. Just a quick review of generosity and ethics. So generosity, it's a couple of the definitions we looked at. Giving with joy, without any sense of loss. And I can say that, but I really have to watch. You know, sometimes it's like that. Sometimes big sense of loss, right? But just practice. Be where you are. Keep doing it. When we give, to be really aware, what is this like for me? Notice the joy it brings. Notice where the edge is, where, I don't wanna, and I pull back. Fine. No judgment. You're just seeing. That's where I'm at right now with it. And I love this other part about, thank you, Randy, about the giving with joy. Gampopa's quote, "It's a mind co-emergent with non-attachment." That's pretty far. Most of us, at least me, my mind has constant attachment. I can shift it around, attached to this, attached to that, attached to that, but pretty much there's a habit there. So this is a mind co-emergent with non-attachment, which brings up this thought that we've been weaving through the 6 paramitas, the emptiness of the 3 spheres. So just a quick review on that. The 3 spheres: the actor, the action, and the object acted on, so to speak, okay? So the giver, the gift, and the receiver, for example. Each one of them does not exist in the way it seems to us to exist. That's what it's empty of. It's empty of our misconception. Myself, empty of my misconception of me. The giving, empty of misconception. The receiver, empty of misconception. This is the co-emergent with non-attachment. So it's a pretty, far out there situation, but we're headed there, okay? And Gampopa says, with that mind co-emergent with non-attachment, fully giving the thing. I love Shantideva's paraphrase. Shantideva, who I paraphrase, use your own body like a boat. Just see it as a boat, The conventional eye is just riding in this little heap of aggregates. You can make it a pretty boat. Mine's pretty simple. It's kind of a little old wooden boat. And when I picture this, and go here and there. Use it for going here and there. Make of it, now this is his actual quote, make of it a thing that answers every wish to bring about the benefit of beings. Isn't that lovely? Mm-hmm. Just make it that. What else could it be good for? It's decaying every minute. It's gonna, boy, is it falling apart when you hit 68. You really get that. And, so, you know, when you reach the other side with the boat, you're just going to have to let it go. So might as well let it go today, in a sense. So take good care of it. You want the boat to last till you get across the lake. But, yeah, you know, no big attachment. Changing every second. Just use it. Just use it well. So you have to take care of it well to use it well. But there's that line between every little owie that I have, I spend a lot of time on. You know, that's one ditch. Or I ignore my body and just go ahead till I smash into the wall. Those are the two ditches, right? It's going to be in the middle. Take good care of the boat, but set the purpose of doing that for the benefit of others. Okay, so that's some of the generosity practice. I think I'll say one other thing. I like this thing that I got from discussions with Bill, who's now here in body, not just in ideas. I shared last time. Thank you, Bill. And Dora gave me an outline. Thank you, Dora. That when she taught this in like all 6 paramitas in 2 hours or something. That was very inspiring. What do we need to be generous? It doesn't have to be anything, an object. We often think, you know, I'll give an object. But as we practice and our heart and mind heals, our heart and mind opens to our own Buddha nature, that's what we have to offer. Right there. Just presence. And, you know, so many people I know have experienced this with Lama Michael or other teachers. They don't really have to be saying things, doing things, quoting texts and all that. They just come in and their presence, all these teachers, their presence is the gift. Everything else is kind of frosting on the cake, but you know what I'm saying? Do people, you have some sense of that kind of an experience? You're just in the presence of someone and you feel better. Maybe you've heard the Dalai Lama speak. You've been with him in person, even with 10,000 people. He walks in the room and it's like, you know. Okay. Now, quick review of ethics. Where did I put that? You know, as these classes grow, you start getting too many pieces of paper. But I tried to sort them out this morning. Okay, I'm just going to do a few quotes because we really want to get on to patience, joy, separate concentration, and wisdom, and at least touch on every single one of those this morning and do some contemplations too. So ethics. In the text, 37 Practices of a Bodhisattva, here's the quote. Without ethics, you can't accomplish your own needs, your own well-being. So wanting to accomplish others is laughable. This really cuts this idea of I'm the big helper. We talked about this quite a bit. I'm the together person, and I'm helping you, poor, miserable, confused creature. Which is a pride, right? And it also, though, is kind of a step on the way to compassionate action. You know, at least we have the motive to help. But it's filled with our pride of self, I, me, I'm the helper. And some of us, when we get really sick, like when I had my breast cancer, it's like a jujitsu, like, hey, wait, I'm the helper. I'm not supposed to be in bed sick and helpless, you know, full of chemicals and out of it. And that was a real hard thing for me to make that flip. It felt like a lot of suffering. Coming out of it, it was like, wow, good lesson. You know, some real humility grows. So for many of us, serious illness can be an amazing teacher. Amazing teacher. Hard teacher. Not easy, but there's the good lesson in it. So this wanting, if I can't be ethical, if I can't meet that with some kind of grace, some kind of keep trying to not be grumpy with people and, trying to keep my ethics, if I can't meet situations with that, wanting to accomplish others' well-being is just ridiculous. I haven't even got my own life straightened around. I'm still taking drugs or drinking or having affairs or whatever, but I'm the big helper, right? It's like, well, there's some limits there, dear. So, safeguard your ethical discipline. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. I also like this idea, and I'm not sure where it came from because I read a lot of things while I was preparing for this, but this idea of ethics as getting your body, speech, and mind, your actions of body, actions of speech, actions of mind, in line with the reality of deep interdependence. Ethics will automatically follow. It's not a big struggle, like I have to follow the 10 Commandments. There's you, there's me, and I have to follow the 10 Commandments. This is just getting your actions in line with truth. The truth is we're so interdependent that everything, even we think, much less we say or do, affects the other one. So when you come in here and you're with like-minded people for a Saturday morning, you're affected. Your mind is kind of lifted, at least mine is. It's more lifted here than when I was upstairs alone. Okay? So something's going on, right? We can notice that. So if we get our body, speech, and mind in line with this reality of the deep interdependence, which is the true nature of our experience, then it doesn't become, I must follow these 10 rules. I must not do these 10 negative actions that we listed last time. I must do these 10 positive actions. It's good to have those concrete lists. I found them very helpful throughout all of my last 20 years studying Dharma, to go, what am I doing here? Zopa, it's harsh speech. It's one of the 4, problems, difficulties, unethical ways of speech. And I memorized them because I had time and I was in a place where people were doing that. But it's quite good to do that, memorize the 10 actions that cause suffering, and then you can see, am I engaging in this? Which one of these? Because we can get kind of sloppy about it. Oh, I know I'm doing something here that's not right, but yeah, I just got to, okay, I'll stop. Well, that's a pretty gross level of understanding, but if you go, I'm doing divisive speech here. I started talking with a friend, I slipped into gossip, and now it's divisive speech. In other words, I'm saying things that I'm sneakily trying to make her think better of me than of the one not here that we're talking about. So it's quite good to get to those kind of levels, as we can, no pressure. And then the other 2 things I want to say about ethics is, this is directly from Bill Spangle, this idea of moving from bad actions, good actions, to this idea, I really like this, of the all-embracing good, the all-embracing goodness of ourselves, the Buddha nature, the Samantabhadra nature of everything, ourselves, everything else. So again, to me, that ties with the interdependence, because then we end up acting in a way that reduces suffering pretty much automatically, because we understand our Buddha nature, the Buddha nature of everything. There's no room really to... It is the end of suffering, this understanding, this deep understanding, ends suffering. And that's all the ethics are for, to end suffering. If suffering's ended, we don't even need ethics, right? But these are all steps on the way. Okay, I think that's enough. Oh, I wanted to reshare this wonderful quote from Norman Fisher, the Zen priest. Quote, "Bodhisattvas," that's awakened beings build their practice of ethical conduct on a vision of the world's interconnectedness. So again, this all-embracing interdependence. So we build our ethics not on a good, bad, keeping tally, going to hell, going to heaven, but rather on a vision of the world's interconnectedness. Bodhisattvas see with wisdom eye of insight the world's empty of separation, of boundary, empty of cramped limitation. I love that. Empty of cramped limitation. That's what it's empty of. And it is full of connection, merging, warmth, and embrace. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. All right. Any questions right there? So that's review. And kind of getting us to now. We're always in now. But that was all now. But it felt like it was the past. Okay. So when we decide we're going to work on the Bodhisattva path, and I hope you're deciding that, you're not just coming to listen and put your notes up on a shelf.
What notes?
Or your whatever, listen as, what is Lama Michael, he used to say, listen as entertainment, and I had never heard that before from a teacher. Don't just treat the Dharma as entertainment. And I was like, what's he talking about? I'm pretty soon I could find myself doing that, like sitting there going, well, this is really cool. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, this is good. But no intention to like bring it to me, my experience. This is about my life, and my efforts to end suffering. Not I'm watching a good show here. Okay, so we have to have that part.
As you were saying earlier, all these things are steps along the way.
Yeah.
This is entertainment, might be a step up.
From not coming at all. Is that what you mean?
Or being entertained by other things.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Yes, oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good kind of entertainment. It's the Dharma, at least, rather than a movie that, ends and you feel worse than ever.
So we can go far.
Yeah, we can use everything. Use everything. So what we're trying to do here is get at the cause of suffering. So, and we can't not just gloss it. Oh, it's my mind. Cause of suffering is my mind. Okay, that's done. Now I'll just watch my mind. Oh, good, bad. But really, on this deeper level, and we'll get more to this when we get into the wisdom piece, but we grasp at this self that does not exist in the way that we perceive it in our ignorance, okay? So the hallucinated self, the incorrect self, misperceived self, is the bottom level of suffering. It's the ignorance, okay? And then because I think there's separate self, and I really am so steeped in that, it's very hard to step outside of it, and we'll work again in the wisdom piece on that. But I just want us to have this perspective as we go into these next paramitas. That misperception then causes all the afflictive emotions, the two main ones being grabbing and pushing away. So we spend our lives running after things and running away from things, running after things, running away from things, and maybe running, you could even change, walking towards things and walking away from things, thinking I want it, thinking I don't want it. So just to watch this in ourselves and look again, what's causing that at the deeper level? Well, I think there's a self here. I think there's something to protect. I think it's separate from you. I've got personal territory here. better not come in unless I want you to, and if I want you to, you better come. You see? And then boom, 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 suffer, suffer. So we're going to move on to the third paramita, generosity, ethics. We did a quick review. Going to patience. We started patience last night. We got a definition, is what we got, and then our time ran out. I'm using a translation that comes from the Dalai Lama and Venerable Thupten Chidren mixed together with my experience. And so I'm calling patience calm strength. You know, it's like there's a sense of calm, which the Dalai Lama often talks about, being calm no matter what the circumstances, okay? So you're in a war, you're calm. You're in peace, you're calm. So this running after and running away, stop. You know, they're just not there. You're being with what is, and you're having a calm mind. It's the ocean. The waves are going, sometimes a tsunami even, but the ocean stays the ocean. The tsunami does its thing and then goes back into the quiet ocean. So this is the kind of calm of patience. Venerable Chidren likes to talk about fortitude, the strong part of patience. And so I kind of call it a calm strength, because you need a fortitude to be able to do that, to hold the calm, right? So-called. Hold it. Be in it. Be it. It's not passive, the calm. It's awake, aware, and it knows the most skillful action. Okay? The most skillful action might be soft and gentle. It also might be very forceful. You know, sometimes, let's say a mom, let's say this mom, whose little boy, we didn't have a fence in our big front yard, and he could not understand not running out into the street. He thought this was like great fun. And the more mom didn't want him to do that when we went out the front door, of course, the more he wanted to do that. So many discussions were had, many treats given to Nod, this to that. And one day he did it, the car was coming, and I ran, I grabbed him, and I popped him on the butt, and he had never been hit by anyone. And he was shocked. And he cried, and he never ran in the street again. For me, that popping him on the butt was automatic. You know, there wasn't thought. That was probably why it worked. I just had pure fear, you know. And maybe that's why it worked. But forceful, it was forceful. And that was the end of that. So who knows, you know. But sometimes it needs to be that way. So I want to talk about some types of patience and how they interact with the five, and then talk a bit about anger, which is our main affliction related to patience. Okay, I have to check one thing here. Oh, okay, good. I'm trying to stay a little more on time this time so we can get through the pieces. So, because I can just get going. I have had this huge, great fortune of having so many teachings. From my dear teachers. And sometimes it just floods in, and I sort of can't move on because it's like so much information. So I'm just feeling that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, I don't know, should I tell that story about the Palestinian woman? Do people remember it?
It's a good story.
Huh?
It's a good story.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it looks like most people don't remember. Who remembers? I just want to see. Yeah, Cynthia's heard it more than once.
It's a good
Brian. Okay, good. I'll tell it again. And there may be new people online too. This is, to me, a story of the calm strength. So, as we all know, the Middle East war has been going on for pretty much, 50 years, 60 years, something like that. And a while ago, probably in the 80s or 90s, there was a journalist who went over to talk to Palestinian common folks. And he was interviewing an older Palestinian woman in front of her rather modest little shack, almost shack, small house. And he said to her, wow, have you lived here all your life? And she said, yes. And he said, so you've been in a war zone all your life? And she said, yes. And he said, well, how have you done that? How are you doing? Do you feel upset, angry? What's the despair? What's this like for you? And she just looked at him and she said, in my heart, I've never gone to war against anyone.
Mm-hmm.
This is calm strength and compassion, These all work together. Exactly what the Dalai Lama is talking about. Middle of a war, and this person is holding this calm, peaceful place. She's a peace zone. Right there. How effective must that be? So when she says that, what kind of effect has it had on her neighbors, etc.? They know there's a refuge, a place they can go, they can talk with her, they can be with her. So this is what we're talking about, an example of that. So to a little bit more theoretical approach, the Geshe Lindop Sopa, a great teacher. He was the debate master of the Dalai Lama. He just died 2 years ago, founded Deer Park Monastery in Wisconsin, where sometimes I get to go study. He lists the types of patience as 3. The patience of disregarding harm done to you. So we could see that woman is a perfect example. Disregard the harm done to me. Again, we end up at the 3 spheres, make it possible. There's no real solid me here. There's no real solid harmer. There's no real solid harm done. And in fact, on the Mahayana path, this middle turning, all harm can be transformed into the path. Your cancer can become your best teacher. Your divorce can become a good teacher for you. We make all kinds of cynical remarks about these things, like, oh yeah, great learning lesson, I hope I never have another one, stuff like that. But these are learnings, and they are learnings if we mine them. We mine it, we work at it. So the patience of disregarding harm, stopping your sense of retaliating, this impulse to revenge that we have. You slap me, there's an instantly, I want to slap you. Really, it's like that. If someone came up and slapped me, I'm not Gandhi, I haven't practiced to that point. My impulse would be to hit you. I would hope that I would be able to stop. I think I would now. Be careful what you ask for. But, I don't know, So that impulse to revenge, this is what we would work on ending. The third one's the patience of accepting suffering as part of life. Hey, where do you think you are? We're in one of the 6 realms here, the human realm. In the human realm, suffering is built in. Also, end of suffering is there, So that's why it's considered a very good place. Being human is got a lot of room to move through suffering and help others. Animals, for example, an animal can't do that very well because they have limited thinking. Yeah, a dog might save their master, or a bodhisattva dog could show up, a bodhisattva porpoise could show up and save a drowning person. Some porpoises have. So we can't say what kind of mind is in what kind of form. But in general, animals just don't, they can't figure it out beyond a little bitty area of thought. So we can learn to accept suffering. Well, it's part of life. Okay, I'm not so surprised. This week, my good friend had a heart attack, and I noticed I was really sad. I didn't get mad. That was nice. That was kind of new. I used to get mad, like, why this happened, and why didn't the doctor, blah, blah, and, go off on, why didn't the doctors catch this way before? Why didn't she catch this way before? Why didn't he catch it? Like, that didn't happen, so that was nice. But I had real sadness, and the person's okay now. Well, sort of stabilized. But this piece of, oh, this is part of life. Yeah, right. I had to go, oh yeah, gosh, someday that person's going to die. So this heart attack and getting well, it's like, I get to see, I meditate every day on death. I do, at least a minute, often longer. My own death of others. So I think, I'm making some real progress on this death thing. And then my close friend has a heart attack, and it's like I get to see, well, yeah, you've made good progress. You're not pissed off about it anymore. But there's your limit. You're still like, I don't want you to die, And then looking and going, that's okay. That's sadness. It's human. Except I was in it, cried a lot, still feel tender about it. But also had that thought, wow, death of everyone you meditate on. Now someone's close and look at the freak out, Just look at it. Don't judge it, and even calling it freak out is not kind. But you see what I'm saying, right? So this patience of accepting suffering as part of life, and then I already talked about this, but I just demonstrated it. I realized transforming it by taking it onto the path. In other words, I could pretty immediately, because of the practice, and I'm not bragging on myself, I'm giving you, I hope, examples. I could pretty quickly turn it to Dharma, like, okay, now here's how far here's what your mind's doing with death, look at that, and use it to deepen your practice, instead of just getting lost in the emotions. So the first patience, disregard harm done to you and stop the impulse to revenge. Second, accept suffering as part of life and transform it by taking it right back onto the path. What's this showing me? How can I be more kind? How can I be skillful in this situation? Third one, the kind of patience that led you here. It's a patience that continues to seek out truth. Even if truth is hard to find, and you come to Dharma and you hear truth about emptiness and you go, wow, or 10 negative things to meditate and you go, the patience that says, the fortitude that says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what I can toward that. I'm going to keep going till I understand the situation that we're in. It's the patience to pursue the truth of reality, to keep learning until we get it. So that's the patience fortitude. Now, patience interacts with the other far-reaching attitude practices. I'll just do a couple examples. Patience with generosity. I think I told this story last time. It's the giving and the no attachment to the outcome, the calm about no matter what they do. And I told that story about my teacher. She was quite young, and she went and saw Lama Zopa, who she adored, and she didn't have much. She was quite poor when she was studying the Dharma in Nepal. and she brought in, I don't know, someone given her a brocade bag or something, and she took it to her teacher. And she was so excited to be able to give her teacher something. And she gave it to him, and they had a little audience. And then she went out, sat in the courtyard in bliss, you know, saying, I gave to my teacher, and there's so much merit in that. And we had such a nice talk, and someone had, of course, been in line to go in right after her, and she was sitting there, and this guy came out with the bag. And she was like instantly like, wait a minute, he didn't even appreciate my gift. That was the only nice thing I had to give, and he just gave it away. And then she saw her mind going, what kind of generosity is this? You know, I just lost it, right? I just lost it. So patience with generosity, or the story I told about the guy I was being so nice to on the street, the poor ragged homeless man, and I handed him $1, and he looks at me really mean and says, I don't take money from women. I was mad right away. I was so mad. And it was the same thing. I caught myself as I walked. I took my $1 back, thinking what an ungrateful SOB, da-da-da, and get partway down the block and go, you know, so but what is this giving without attachment thing? You know, you just give. And what happens, comes back, is actually you could transform it by seeing the gift back to me. Was that guy doing that? Because he was showing me, oh yeah, you're all proud. I mean, he's not intending to do this, maybe. Maybe it's a bodhisattva tried to show me, you think you're all that. But the transformation would be thinking like that. Like, oh, the teacher just showed up and showed me, oh yeah, you're all that, in a bag of chips, you know. You hand your $1 to this poor ragged guy and go on to work. And no, no. And how do you like that? And my self-centeredness is said, I don't like it. And then I go, okay, there's the object to be negated. That's what the Gelug's call it. When that I rises up, you can go, there, I see you. As Patra Rinpoche said, I see you, I see you, you're the cause of suffering. Miss I, that's all angry about this and all proud. He should have accepted my $1. You know, that's the object to be negated. So we can see these times with so-called difficult people as times for us to go, oh, there's the culprit. The self-grasping. I'm grasping at a self. I'm thinking he's separate from me. I'm thinking I did good. He did bad. Right there. That's the suffering. Okay, so that can be transformed. Oh yeah, what I was talking about was interacting with the 5 others. So I'm just going to give you that one. Obviously you need patience with ethics, with joyous effort. You can't do it. Oh, do we need patience with developing concentration? Yeah. Okay. So you obviously see how they are each needs the other. Okay. So now we need to look at anger for a little bit.
Mention on patience. Patience is, I think, just by the example of the number, just a few of the examples that you shared about how that's translated.
Yeah.
It's clear that the word patience, none of these exactly get the whole thing, because when we say, oh, patience, we usually think I'm willing to wait.
Yeah. Because it's the same thing.
Well, the willing part is applicable. The waiting part is not the point in this case.
Yeah.
So in all of these, there's something more to look at, something deeper.
And is that because of the Tibetan phrase
I don't
carries so much more?
Well, I'm sure that the word originally in Sanskrit is more challenging to translate.
Okay. Yeah, and that's why we have to put parts of it together to really see. It's not our common meaning.
Yeah.
You can always count whenever you're in the Dharma. Almost all the words are not going to be the common meaning, but we start there. Okay, so this Anger, first of all, see it on a continuum from the slightest irritation, actually even maybe before that, the slightest judgment. And before that, of course, the self, so you can go deeper, deeper, deeper with all of these. But we're going to talk more in kind of this middle way. The slightest cold-hearted judgment. Anger can be cold or hot. That was really important for me to realize, because I have the cold kind most of the time, and I thought I wasn't angry, like those hot-headed folks, they're the angry one, not me. I just kill them off in my mind, and I just walk away, you see, and that's me being calm. No, no, calm can look like that. So you have to investigate in your mind whether you have that kind. Sometimes it's skillful to walk away, but the point in Dharma is to do that out of compassion, not out of, I think you're awful and I don't want to be around you in any way, shape, or form. You see the difference? So noticing cold, hot anger and the whole continuum, keeping that in mind, Geshe Sopa says, anger is not the nature of anyone. I love that. Anger is not our nature. Why? Because our nature is Buddha. Anger is not our nature. People aren't born wanting to hurt anyone. Babies don't come out saying, I hope I can sock somebody today. I hope I can get rid of everyone. They just don't. They just don't. So that means anger arises, like everything, from causes and conditions. So it arises from predisposition to it. We open time, beginningless, endless. We've been cultivating this one, So of course we come in, the baby isn't totally innocent. The baby comes in with some predisposition to it. That doesn't mean it has to manifest, but we've got the predisposition. We've got, number 2, the condition of us thinking there's an object separate from us, something to be angry at. Sometimes we think that about ourselves. We make ourselves, like we split out, I am angry at myself. We're kind of split out there. There's an I and there's an I. That's an interesting meditation. Whenever we say I'm this at myself, that's a good time to look. Who's the I that's angry at who? But we talk that way all the time. I'm angry at myself, or I think I'm lazy. Which I thinks which I is lazy? Interesting. So there's this predisposition to anger. There's the condition of us thinking there's some separate object. And then there's the wrong perception of this object. This is really important. Venerable Chitran calls this wrong perception exaggerating the negative. So I could look at anything. That cushion. There's a spot right there. There actually is. Look at that. Oh my God. Look at that. And there's another one there. And there's 3. Aren't there, Bill? There's 3. Oh my God. Oh! Disgusting. And who is supposed to clean those? I have been wondering that since I moved here. And on we can go, right? I think it's Poonsok's job. Where is she? And then stomped upstairs or whatever. You see how it can just exaggerate in the negative. I could also look and exaggerate the positive. What a beautiful cushion. Oh my gosh, someone made that. I love it. It's kind of a softer material, I noticed when I picked it up. And then the others, it's kind of silky. That's neat. I like it a lot better than the one I'm on. And I kind of want that. I think that one should be mine. So you see, exaggerate the negative, exaggerate the positive. The minute we exaggerate the positive, if anyone does anything to my cushion, the anger comes. So those go together. But in anger, we're mostly exaggerating the negative. In attachment, we're exaggerating the positive. You can see how close they are. Ooh, one leads to the other. So this is an important part. The ignorance thinks there's something separate there, That's the first part. And I'm separate from that. And then it starts exaggerating, the negative, and then the anger comes. But always, as Lama Yeshe says, we're just hallucinating from the beginning. We get that hallucination, separate outgoing. We build a great big story on it, great big story on it. One of the things I've been noticing lately is that I am always angry, or when I'm angry at a person or a sentient being, even a bug, I end up being angry at their suffering. I've just been seeing this a little differently. Like, I was so angry at someone, and I started just trying to be with it, and I thought, that's a suffering being. And what you're angry at is you don't like their suffering. You don't like that kind of suffering. They should suffer differently. And so, it's so interesting to just say, what am I angry at really with a person? Well, almost always they're doing some thing, right? Some behavior. And I'm angry at it, and always that behavior is coming out of suffering unless they've realized their Buddha nature, completely. And have I realized mine? No. So it's just an interesting thing to be playing with. The true nature of our mind is clarity and awareness, and that's why Geshe Soka says it's not our nature to be angry. Our nature is this pure, clear awareness. There's no inherent, indelible anger. We think it is, but it's like clouds, thunderstorms going across the sky. They'll be gone, and the blue sky is still there. The blue sky was there when they were going, when they arose, when they abided, when they disappeared. And furthermore, we can't even find the moment of arising, the moment of abiding, and the moment of disappearing. Okay, how do we cultivate patience? There's a couple things I want to say. We're just a little over time, but they'll be shorter. When anyone's angry at you and you're kind of pulled to be angry back, Shantideva says, ask yourself, of course we usually can't do this in the moment, we have to kind of get away, it depends on how much you're practicing, but you can say either sometime later or in the moment, is this the person's inherent nature or a temporary occurrence? If it is their true nature, which of course we know the answer already is, it's no one's true nature to be angry. They're not inherently angry. That's not their true nature. They're a Buddha. Then getting mad back is like being angry at fire because it burns things up. So do we get angry at fire? Well, sometimes if it burns our house down, but really it's the nature of fire to do that. If it's temporary, then getting angry is like being mad at a little thunderstorm in the sky. Clears up. So again, this is an effort. This verse is an effort to bring in that calm, fortitude. What am I being angry? If this is really the person's nature, it's again their suffering. Gee, they have a kind of a personality to just get angry, angry, angry. Wow, that's incredible suffering. Mm-hmm. So my being angry is just adding more suffering. Or if it's not their nature, okay, it's going to be over in a couple minutes. And again, they're just suffering during that time. 2 more ways to work with anger. Don't suppress don't suppress or express it. Neither suppress. So you need to let it be in yourself. I see you. I see you, anger. I see you. And if we can, sit with it. Sometimes we need to leave the room, but in my marriage, I used to leave the room with my cold anger, and what my husband reflected to me as we went to therapy was I thought I was doing a very skillful thing there. Like, I'm not yelling back. I'm not, saying the things that are going on in my head to say to you. And he said, yeah, but I know you're angry when you leave, and it freaks me out. I'm scared. I'm like, is she coming back? Whatever. So one of the things I started working towards when or if I need to do that in an argument, I would say, I need to leave the room. I will come back. And I go, you see the difference? That was more compassionate. More compassionate. We have to work where we are. It would be nice if anger never came up, but good luck, humans. And then go off, and then he'd be like, okay, she's doing what she needs to do. So he wouldn't come after me to argue more or get scared, and he'd give the space, and he'd have space too. I already talked about that. We kind of know from our Shine practice here that you sit with it, you get to know it, you invite your anger in for tea. Now you can do this through a contemplation. And maybe we'll just do a few minutes of that. So sit in a nice meditation pose and take a couple of breaths. And just think of a time that you were angry. A more recent time's good, or if you don't have one, just a potent time. Just call it to mind. See if you can call it to mind without getting real stuck on the big story. I'm right, they're wrong. But just feeling the anger. Just explore it, see what it's like. Check your body, and as you recall the anger, hopefully being able to actually feel it, see what your body does. Is there any heat rises, cold rises, anything like that? See if you can feel an impulse to do something as it rises, either to move, to say. And don't do anything with that impulse, just notice it. What does that impulse feel like in your body? If you get lost in the story, come back to your breath and start over. What part of your body wants to move? If the story rises strongly, just let the story be there like waves on the ocean. And now look, if you're working, usually it's with a person or an object, usually a person. Can you see their suffering? And just let it all go. Let the story disappear. It's a cloud dissipating in the sky. And just sit with your breath. And before we break, I just want to share one other thing about I guess we could call it the value of the so-called difficult person, or some texts call it the enemy, because really we say, oh, I don't have any enemies, but in that moment it feels like an enemy, you know. It's back to that guy that I gave the $1 to, you know, I can go further than just cultivating calm and patience. I can see the advantage of that person as a teacher. So whenever anything or person appears as difficult or an enemy, we can start to try to cultivate the mind that says, this is the Bodhisattva mind, good, a difficult situation, something to work on here. Instead of, oh my God, you know, not that. I don't want this added on. I'm already such a poor, low, suffering being. And we are, you know, we are. But to that fortitude, that joyous effort we'll be talking about, to go, you know what, I actually want to end my suffering and the suffering of others, so I need to know it. I need to see my limits. I need to see this. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Guy on the sidewalk, for showing me my pride of giving, you know. Thank you, you know, the person who irritates the heck out of me every day or every whatever, you know. Thank you. I see I'm limited. I see right where I need to work now. It sounds facile, but it's so important. Make sense? Okay, so that's it for patience. There's a ton more to say, but any questions before we take a break?
So if I'd just like to clarify, my thinking keeps going back around to patience and impatience and how anger is impatience.
Yeah.
And okay,
Yeah,
I keep wanting to replace that. When we did the visual meditation, I wanted to be impatient.
Yeah, that would be okay.
I didn't want to label it anger.
Why not?
Because I didn't want to be angry.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah. And so the way I've worked with it, that's been helpful, is see the whole thing on a continuum, from just the slightest nasty judgment that starts out. I put it on the continuum of anger, whatever you want to call the continuum. Exaggerated negativity, you know. I'm exaggerating the negative here, and watching from that to full rage, you know. So impatience is in there, you know. You move along, irritation, you know, and you move along. Pretty soon you're just darn mad. Then you want to get rid of the thing. I mean, like get rid, or revenge, you know. So it's just all on the same continuum. And the slightest can be the seeds for the conditions just shift a little and boom, you're going to war. Yeah. And thanks for bringing that up, because none of us want to be angry. We want to be nice people. But bodhisattvas aren't just nice people. Because nice people, I'm speaking of myself when I want to be a nice person, but see if it fits. We don't really move forward on this courageous path because we just stay nice. Nice. And how helpful is that to anyone who's struggling? You know, we got to go way beyond that. Okay, let's take a break, about 10 minutes, with some nice tea. Thank you so much for being here and listening. Making that possible.
I'm sorry, I was slightly disruptive.
You're cold?
No, I said I was a little late and slightly disruptive. I scurried in.
No worries. Glad you're here.
Suddenly the whole world was like a different place.
Did you get lost?
I got lost.
Oh.
It's funny how you can, things are different when you're on your feet. Nothing is the same.